You've been told your brain peaked at 25, that everything after that was a slow, quiet decline, slower memory, slower reflexes, a mind that was, from that point forward, simply fading. It's why a 55-year-old walks into a room full of 25-year-olds and quietly assumes he's the slowest thinker there. It's why we joke about senior moments like they're inevitable. But new research says something almost nobody's talking about. Your brain doesn't peak at 25. It peaks at 55 to 60. And once you understand why, you will never think about getting older the same way again. Here's where the myth comes from. For decades, scientists measured intelligence the way you'd measure an athlete. How fast can you solve this puzzle? How quickly can you recall this list? That's called fluid intelligence, and yes, it does peak in your 20s and slide from there. If intelligence was only a stopwatch, the story would end there, and getting older really would just mean getting slower. But that is not the whole brain. That is one small dial on a much bigger machine. In 2025, researchers Gignac and Zajankowski did something nobody had really done before. Instead of measuring just raw speed, they combined 9 different traits into a single overall index: cognitive tests, personality, emotional intelligence, moral reasoning, financial judgment, resistance to bias, mental flexibility, empathy, and what they call need for cognition, basically, how much a person actually enjoys thinking deeply. When you combine all 9 of those into one overall picture of how a mind functions, the peak isn't 25, it's 55 to 60. People in their 60s tested on this broad model scored roughly equal to people in their 20s, despite having noticeably slower reaction times. Their minds weren't quicker, they were better. This is the part that breaks the myth completely. Your brain isn't one single machine with one single peak. It's a toolbox, and every tool inside it is on its own separate clock. Reaction time, pure processing speed, peaks around 18 or 19 and starts declining almost immediately after. Short-term memory keeps improving a little longer, peaking around 25, but vocabulary, general knowledge, comprehension, the accumulated weight of everything you've learned keeps climbing for decades. Studies show vocabulary scores are still rising into people's late 60s and 70s. And the ability to read people, to catch what someone actually means underneath what they're saying, to sense tension in a room before anyone says a word, that skill doesn't peak in your 20s at all. It peaks in your 40s and 50s, as the researchers describe intelligence as less like a single spike and more like a mosaic. Some tiles light up early and fade fast. Others don't fully switch on until midlife. There is no one age where the brain peaks because there's no one brain. There are dozens of abilities, each with its own timeline, and most of the ones that actually run your life, judgment, patience, reading people, making the right call under pressure, aren't even close to finished by 25. But here's where it gets more complicated, and honestly, more interesting. Midlife isn't just a story of gains. There's a real cost happening underneath the surface, and pretending otherwise would be lying to you. Researchers studying brain connectivity in over 19,000 people found that the brain's networks follow something like an S-curve, relatively stable through your 30s, then starting around age 44, something shifts. Decline accelerates, and it speeds up further around 67, before leveling off later in life. The reason isn't that your brain is simply wearing out, it's that your neurons are starting to struggle to get fuel. Scientists found something called neuronal insulin resistance developing in midlife, meaning brain cells become less efficient at using glucose, the sugar your brain normally runs on. That's a real measurable shift. Your brain in its 40s and 50s is quietly running low on its usual fuel source at the exact same time it's supposed to be doing its best work. And this is the twist almost nobody hears about. Your brain has a backup fuel system, ketones, an alternate energy source that doesn't need insulin to work. Researchers identified a ketone transporter in the brain called MCT2 that appears to protect aging neurons when glucose stops being reliable. In an experiment giving people ketones instead of glucose, the effect on brain network stability wasn't spread evenly across every age group. It was moderate in people in their 20s and 30s. and it faded almost completely after 60. But in people between 40 and 59, the exact window everyone assumes is the beginning of decline, the effect was strongest. Midlife isn't just when your brain is doing its best integrative thinking, it's also apparently the exact window where switching fuel sources can protect it the most. The body seems to know something is happening in this decade and is quietly asking for a different kind of energy to keep up. Researchers studying this window suggest the implication goes beyond biology trivia. If there's a specific decade where switching fuel sources has the biggest protective payoff, then the interventions people usually associate with much later in life, things like ketogenic approaches to diet, might actually matter more starting in your 40s than they do at 70. Not because your brain is failing at 40, because that's the window where it's most receptive to being supported. So layer these two things together. On one hand, midlife is when your brain's raw fuel efficiency starts slipping. On the other, it's exactly when your judgment, wisdom, and overall cognitive personality index reach their highest point ever recorded. That's not a contradiction. That's the trade: speed for depth, glucose efficiency for wisdom. The parts of your brain built for quick reflexes are handing the baton to the parts built for accumulated experience. And the research suggests your 50-something brain is not declining so much as it's reallocating. This shows up outside the lab too. Look at who actually runs things: CEOs, judges, surgeons performing the hardest procedures, heads of state. These roles are almost never filled by people under 40. And almost never by people over 65 either. That's not a coincidence or a bias in hiring. It lines up almost exactly with the cognitive personality peak researchers are now measuring directly. The people we trust with the highest stakes decisions on the planet are, statistically, operating at the exact age science now says the human mind is working best. And this is where the myth does real damage. If you believe your sharpest years ended at 25, you start acting like it. You second-guess decisions you're actually more equipped than ever to make. You assume the fog you feel some mornings means decline, when it might just mean your fuel source needs support, not that your judgment is failing. You quietly hand younger people the confidence that the data says you've actually earned. The myth doesn't just misinform you, it talks you out of trusting the version of your mind that is, by every broad measure, the most capable one you've ever had. And it does the same damage in reverse to everyone younger watching this. It teaches 20-somethings to peak early and coast when the truth is the best thinking of their lives is still decades away, still being built, one decision and one hard-won lesson at a time. So if you're sitting somewhere in your 40s or 50s right now, wondering if the best thinking years are behind you, here's what the research is actually telling you. They're not behind you. They might not have even started yet. Your reflexes were faster at 19. Your memory was quicker at 25. But your judgment, your emotional intelligence, your ability to read a room, resist a bad bet, and make the call that actually holds up, that's not falling behind. According to the numbers, it's peaking right now. If this changed how you think about getting older, subscribe, because we go deep into the real science behind the mind, not the myths, every week. And I want to know, what's one decision you make better now than you did at 25? And tell me in the comments. You might be surprised how many people in this room are exactly where you are. Want a deeper dive into how your mind develops through your 50s? Tell us in the comments, and we'll build a series with practical tips for stronger, more balanced thinking.